Hey y'all, it's Crystal. Thanks for coming by today. It's that time of the year, end of the year, almost. It's December, I think, 27th. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up the year. Yeah, so we'll just talk about my favorite books that I read this year. And I got kind of one big list. Sometimes I separate it between like favorite horror and then favorite all the rest, but I just got one big old list this year. It's maybe about like 30-ish, like tippity top faves. And so, yeah, let's make one big list. Because, I mean, I read like about 270 things this year. That's a lot. There's a lot. I read a lot this year. And I read a lot of good things, honestly. I mean, I had a really good reading year as far as reading things that I, pretty much enjoyed. There's always some stinkers in there, or stuff you just don't enjoy as much. But overall, fantastic reading year for me. I enjoyed a lot of things. Just tried some new things. Yeah, it's a good year. It was a really good year. So let's dig right into it because, again, it's a longish list and it's really in no particular order except when we get to my tippity top fave, which I will save for last because there is one absolute standout this year. Let's just get going. So again, these are just books I read this year that didn't necessarily come out in 2023. I just read them this year. Let's go. And it's a mix of everything. A lot of horror though, but anyway, okay. In particular order, The Boatman's Daughter by Andy Davidson. I really love this book. Folk horror, witchy vibes, family, bayou, fantastic. Fantastic. Also, this author gets another spot on the list with The Hollow Kind. Also love that one. Again, kind of folk horror vibes. Family history, secrets. I love some like juicy family secrets in a book. Just really good characters. Yeah, Andy Davidson catapulted to the top of a must-read author list for me this year with both of these books. So absolute standouts of the year. All right, Comfort Me with Apples by Kathryn and Valente. This was a surprise. I really didn't know what to expect with this one. It's just one of those books I had, you got to read it to figure it out. And I think that's the best way to go in. Just read it to see what it's all about. Because I think it's easy to kind of spoil what's going on in here. But it is weird. It's a bit off-putting, a bit unsettling. This woman living in this house in this kind of strange neighborhood. Things aren't what they seem. Very, very good. I was super impressed. Okay, We Are Here to Hurt Each Other by Paula D. Ashe. This was an astounding short story collection of horror stories. Some gruesome bits, some really dark things going on in these stories. And some of the stories were kind of linked through a certain character, and a very, very good short story collection. Fantastic. Okay, an actual physical book now. The Sister Who Ate Her Brothers and Other Gruesome Tales by Jen Campbell, and illustrated by Adam D'Souza. I loved this book. I read it back in February, and it takes some folk stories from different countries, and then Jen kind of puts a spin on it. So like the house that was filled with ghosts is a Japanese story, and then the illustrations are just lovely. I really thoroughly enjoyed this beautiful book of really stunning stories. Yeah, so if you like sort of folklore stories with a bit of a twist, give it a go. All right. Okay, I was also really pleasantly surprised with These Violent Delights by Micah Nemerever. This was one of Amy's book club picks for her Dark Arts book club. And yeah, this one took me by surprise. I was really impressed with this book. The characters in here I thought were amazing. It got really dark. It's this kids, were they in college? I can't even remember now. A bit of LGBT going on too, with characters not being really accepted, because of, their relationship. But like, also the relationship itself was really toxic. And it was really good. It was really good. Okay, Moon of the Crusted Snow by Waubgeshig. I loved this book. I finally got to it earlier this year, and oh God, I loved it. If you like quiet moving stories, with some really interesting characters, with a tension that is there because we know something is going on, right? We're following this small community of, I think it's in Canada, Canadian Indigenous people, and you know, they live kind of on their own, you know, in this little isolated kind of setting. And then people, you know, this guy shows up. He's a white guy. And maybe something has happened in the world, but they're not quite sure because they're so isolated. You know, first, like, the phone goes out, cable goes out, but this is kind of something that usually happens for them, you know, from time to time. And so there's this thing of like not knowing what's going on, and things just get tense and tense and tense as the story goes on. It is so good. It is so good. I loved it so much. Okay, another, The Edible Woman by Margaret Atwood. Boy, did I love this one. Yeah, I really love this one. I don't want to read back in January, but it has stuck with me. This was, how do I explain this? We're following basically, you know, a woman named Nemerever, who's like, she has like a little job, she has a roommate. It's like, it's just following her kind of day-to-day life. There's also this thing with food, and which is a really big part of this. You know, in relationships, you know, should she get married? She's got that thing like, should she get married or not? Like then this thing with food comes in where she stops eating like certain foods throughout, and so it becomes this, I think, this sort of issue with control with food, because that's like the one thing that she can control in her life that kind of just seems to be maybe kind of a going nowhere kind of thing, or she's doing things because that's kind of what we're supposed to do. I don't know. There's a lot going on in here. It was excellent. I loved it so much. All right. Next up. Alrighty, Tristan Strong Destroys the World. This is book 2 of this series. This is by Kwame Mbalia. I love this series. I love this series so much. I'm just so bad at actually reading series. I still read book 3, but whatever. It's just so good. Again, book 2, but it continues kind of the same themes with Tristan and his link to this sort of other world, what we discovered in book 1 when he punches a hole in the sky, brings in again those African American sort of folklore and folk tales and folk characters, and we learn a little bit more about his family in this one, which I really loved. Yeah, I love this series. I love this series. It is so good. And book 2 was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Okay. Da-da-da. Another middle grade book is A Rover Story by Jasmine Warga. Y'all, this book this book had me like crying over a flippin' like Mars rover. It was so good. This is a middle grade book, and it talks about it's a Mars rover. He's going to Mars, and we get perspective from him. I say him, but whatever. and then there's also the people, like there's a young girl who is her mother is involved with kind of building, you know, the rovers and getting them together and all that good stuff, and I guess so there's perspective from the little girl who's feeling a bit neglected because her mother is working so much on this rover, and so she kind of writes letters to the rover and kind of telling how she feels and, you know, all that kind of good stuff. And she kind of has this almost kind of long relationship with this rover, and it picks up, you know, some years later, and I don't know, it's hard to explain, but the perspective from the rover itself was a delight and I loved it so much. It's just so good. It's really heartwarming, really touching. And if you are at all interested in, you know, sort of in the Mars rovers or, you know, NASA and space stuff, you know, all that kind of, I think you'll enjoy it. It still makes me smile thinking about that book. It's so good. Okay, next up was Blindsight by Peter Watts. Talk about science fiction. Yeah, this is a toughie. It is, I would say, not an intro science fiction book. It's a lot going on in here. Really interesting cast of characters, including a vampire. I mean, make that make sense in your head. But we've got this, you know, this group of people. It's a classic setup. You know, a crew is sent out to, you know, explore, you know, a first contact with aliens, right? You know, something has kind of entered, you know, our realm, and we're going to go explore it. But this, like I said, this crew is really interesting, and things maybe aren't quite what they seem, and they're like go into this craft and things get weird. It's a strange one. It's like I said, it's not necessarily an easy science fiction read, but I really enjoyed it, and I think because of the characters are super interesting, and there was this tension between the characters as well, because you weren't quite sure who you could trust, you know. It was, I'm not really explaining it very well, but it's really good. It's really fantastic. Another really fantastic one was Borne by Vandermeer. I don't know, my physical copy is lost in my shelf somewhere. Oh God, I love this book. Read it for a week of Weird, around one that we did in March, and oh my gosh, it's so good. It is kind of, I guess, post, you know, kind of, I say apocalyptic, but that's the only word I can think of, you know, consumerism and things have gone to hell, and messing with like sort of genetic things and bioengineering, you know, things with corporations have gone amok, and the world's just gone to shit, right? So we're following this woman who's kind of trying to survive in this city, and she comes across this little thing, little being, little creature, names him Borne. Story goes from there. About, we learn kind of what happened with the world, why it is how it is, and all that kind of good stuff. But Borne himself is amazing. He's this little creature that can like turn his shapes into different things. He could, I don't know. It was so good, wonderfully weird, and just fantastic. Okay, you knew I was going to talk about this one, right? The Fae Princess by Nikki St. Crowe. This was the final book of this series. The super dark Peter Pan retelling stories that I love. So I got to book 4 towards the beginning of the year. It was an amazing conclusion to the series. I absolutely loved it. I love the way this ended. And then of course we ended up with a little cliffhanger, so we're gonna get a side story come in. She's writing it. It's coming. I'm so excited with some characters. So I'm really excited. But yeah, dirty, dark, super dark erotica romances. Okay, I just following up by a double feature of Michael McDowell books, because I finally read Michael McDowell this year, and I kind of kicked myself for not reading him before, because holy moly, did I love Blackwater and the Elementals. Yeah, I loved both of them. They were fantastic. Blackwater, though, what a sweeping epic, right? This family, the family in this. Talk about characters, and writing of flippin' amazing characters is Blackwater. Oh my God. This book's huge, but I never once felt like it was too much. I loved every single word. And, you know, basically we're set in Alabama, and we, you know, kind of spend the life of this family as there was a flood that happens in the beginning of the book. And so this woman is kind of found in this hotel, and she's rescued by someone in the family, and it just goes from there. It's very Southern. It is very Southern to me. I felt very, what is the word? I was saying comfortable, but that's not even really the word. But like, I just felt like I knew these people, you know, like these are people I probably grew up with, kind of thing, you know. It was very relatable to me personally as a Southerner. I just thought, like, yeah, I really connected with this story and these characters. I just thought it was fantastic. Just a sweeping epic of a family drama, and then dotted with these absolutely horrific moments. So when the horror hits, it hits, and it was just so good. It was an emotional ride. I loved it so much. And really the same with Elementals. I think another awesome, really good family group here, as they are going to the coast area. And there's 3 houses there that the families kind of share, but one of which has fallen into the sand and is kind of being taken over by sand and dunes and everything. And there are ghosts and hauntings and spooky things and family secrets, and I loved it so much. And again, just another really good family stuff going on. I really loved it. Okay, another physical book. Let me find it. I loved We Can Never Leave This Place by LaRocca. This was like grungy, grimy, weird, dark, Ugh. And it was so good. It's kind of a, I don't even know, would you call this a like post-apocalyptic dystopian kind of thing too? I don't know, something has happened in the world here. People are living, they're living, but they're not really living. Like food is really scarce and people go missing, you know, things like that. So we're following this, you know, kind of daughter and her mom, and I don't even know how to explain this book. I'm gonna be honest, because it is flipping weird, absolutely dark, utterly grotesque at times, but also like so beautifully written. So it's like, how does he write such amazingly gross things in such a beautiful way? I don't know, but it was fantastic and I really loved it. And this cover gets a 5 stars. All right. Okay, next up, all right, changing, let me put those books over there. And next up, I'll switch gears to another middle grade book, Front Desk by Kelly Yang. Whoa, did I love this. It's so good, you guys. This book was so good. I think there's a series now too. I've got to get to the rest. But anyway, if, again, middle grade books, if you like middle grade, I highly recommend this one. Following a immigrant Chinese family. I think they were Chinese, let me make sure. Yes, Chinese family who, you know, they come to America, you know, looking for the American dream for themselves. And they start working at this hotel, her parents, and she kind of works there too. Sometimes she like mans the front desk, right? But little do the people that she is working for, who's a real son of a bitch. But I also hide other Chinese immigrants in the hotel at times by giving them a room for the night. It's just a place to stay. And then there's this whole lovely cast of characters of people that actually kind of live at this hotel because it's cheap to live there because it's a down and out kind of motel. But that cast of characters is really lovely too. And I don't know, it's just fantastic. It's about, the struggle of being an immigrant, being a young kid, being an immigrant, going to school and trying to make friends. And I don't know, it's just a delight. It was absolutely wonderful. I loved the characters. I just loved the perspective here. I just thought it was a delight. So highly recommend Front Desk. It was so good. It was so good. Okay. Jawbone by Monica Ojeda. Oh, I couldn't find this one either because it's buried in my shelf somewhere, but I flipping loved this book. For me, I don't know, maybe the best book. I'm gonna say it, the best book I've read about girl friendships, I think. How they can be both the most amazing things, but also be absolutely toxic, especially when you're in that kind of middle grade age range. You know what I'm saying. You've been there, yeah. But there's also this tension with like a teacher, and they're like kind of like torturing this teacher. I don't know, there's a lot going on in here, but it was fantastically written. I love the characters. Again, the way it captured like girlhood, girl friendships, to me was just like hands down the best. It was fantastic. It got dark. It was so good, you guys. You gotta read this book. You gotta read Jawbone. It was so flippin' good. Another flippin' good book, yeah, Walk the Darkness Down by John Bowden. I finally read John Bowden this year too. Man, I'm sleeping on John Bowden. If you're not reading John Bowden, you're missing out because the man can flip and write a book. And this book was so good. This is kind of a Western horror, I guess I would call it a horror. Yeah, definitely horror. It has some horrific. I don't think about this particular one scene. Ugh. Anyway, we're following kind of a different kind of cast of characters that kind of get up together, and this older man, and then there's a young boy who's wrapped up in it, and because his family's all been murdered. But yeah, they're fighting down evil, and it gets dark. It holds nothing back. The ending was like, holy moly, man, if you want a good horror Western, you gotta read this book. And you gotta read some John Bowden, because I still need to read a couple of John Bowden books, but holy moly, did I love this book. It was so flipping good. All right. Okay, Walking Practice by Dolki. Oh my God, this book, you guys, wonderfully, wonderfully weird. Really great discussion about sort of gender. We're following this alien who's come down to Earth and trying to fit in. The alien itself can like sort of manipulate his body to like take different forms. And once it gets here, and it's like try to eat different things, and really it finds that humans is it's kind of like the best thing it conceived to like fulfill their needs. And so it goes on these dating apps to like lure people in and, you know, to eventually eat them. But again, really it's this, you know, I think concept of sort of being alien, feeling foreign in your own body. Again, this discussion about gender, because this alien can take any kind of gender role because it could be anything. I think also trying to fit into humanity when you're not quite comfortable in your own skin. They're just really, it's kind of comical, but it's also really interesting. This one scene when he's trying to like walk and like go upstairs, because it's like this, you know, really like he has to really think about like moving his body, and it's just really super interesting. I thought it was wonderfully written, and the book itself, I highly recommend the physical book. Read the physical book, because there's really amazing illustrations throughout of this alien creature that are fantastic, and I feel like the way the translator what it did physically with the text was really interesting too. And because I think when you look at Korean, how Korean language is set up, you know, it's interesting the way the characters build on each other to make the words. And I think the author did a really good job of translating that into English. There would be times where the text was really like spaced close together. Sometimes it'd be really spaced far apart. There would be like a page of just like backslashes, or I don't, just because of how, again, translating this Korean text into English. So I just highly recommend the physical book. It's not even crazy long. You got to read the physical book with it, because it was an experience. So very, 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 very good book. I loved it. Okay, another physical book I have here is Tiffany McDaniel's The Summer That Melted Everything. Whoa. Okay, Tiffany McDaniel can just write the hell of a book. That's just all I know at this point. And I finally read this one. This was, I think, our first book. So this was so good. It was, how do we talk about this? We're following, you know, this, our main character is a 13, I think it was 13, yeah, 13-year-old boy. And Fielding, for some reason I just love that name. And he stumbles across this kid who shows up in town named Sal. And he's this, you know, he's a black kid, and he claims to be the devil. Now, what we learn earlier in the book is that, or this is all happening in the beginning of the book, but anyway, it's Fielding's father is like a lawyer. What was he? Oh, a prosecutor, yeah. And there's a beginning in the beginning of the book where he's like, you know, dares the devil to show up in town, kind of thing. And so then this young kid shows up claiming to be the devil, and so things start happening in the town, and of course they're gonna blame this kid that calls himself the devil, because of course why wouldn't they? And so a lot of discussion, of course, about race, and how a community can kind of grasp onto something and just like run with it. There's some Tiffany McDaniel always makes me cry, and yes, no exception here. And this was just a really wonderful story, and yeah, it was good. It was so good. Highly recommend. And I really need to read her new book. I haven't got to it yet. Another fantastic story was Fear by Ronald Kelly. Boy, was this good. Yeah, this was excellent. And a sort of coming of age kind of story with, I mean, maybe one of my favorite characters of the year, honestly, was Jeb. How old was he? 10-year-old Jeb. And he lives in this small southern town with his grandmother and his father, who doesn't know he's his father because he has traumatic brain injury from being in the war. Jeb was just, I mean, he's going through it. I mean, he's just a really, you know, his life circumstances were really sad. But he was also just like, still like kind of a cool kid and staying pretty positive, you know, even though he had a lot of weight on his shoulders, because he helped his grandmother with the family farm, you know, all that kind of good stuff. And what was the time period of this? I don't quite remember. Let me see. Was it 1950s? I don't remember now. I will say 1950s. So. But basically, things start disappearing. It starts with livestock first, and then some kids go missing. And there's this creature sort of tormenting the town. There's a quest involved. It was just fantastic. It was just fantastic. Really loved it. And I thought the characterizations here were just really great. I thought everyone was handled with a really great nuance. And they just were super interesting. And yeah, it's so good. It was so good. Chunkies, but worth it. I never felt like it was too long. Okay, of course this one's gonna make the list. Beyond the Story, the BTS book that came out this year. If you're a fan of BTS, you're gonna love this. This starts back from pre-debut to to more up-to-date times, and it really just goes through it. Goes through what they were doing, how it was for them when they first started, and look at them teeny babies, and then their career 10 years later. And I thought it was really great. What I really loved though was that all throughout, peppered throughout, let me find one, were these like QR codes. So you could scan it and then it would take you to like a YouTube video of what they were talking about at this particular point of the book, or an article or whatever, and I thought that was really great. For me, it was kind of like just a trip down memory lane, You're like, oh gosh, I haven't watched this video in a long time, or gosh, I remember this from years ago, or whatever, It was, I really liked that bit of the book. I loathe this cover. I loathe this like halfy cover. I flipping hate it. But other than that, because it just doesn't ever stay on straight, and it drives me bananas. But anyway, I thought it was great. It's really done more kind of like interview style, where this guy, was interviewing people, interviewing the members, and yeah, it was good. It was good. If you're ever, I think, are wanting to get into BTS, I think it's a good place to start, because again, it has those codes, that you can, watch the things as you go. But of course, if you're a fan, it's just a trip down memory lane. And yeah, it was good. It was good. I liked it a lot. All right. Whoa. Switching gears to Son of the Endless Night by John Ferris. Boy, did this one took me by surprise. Amazing step back. Let's show that again. I better read this with Alex over at the Book Bus. We had a great time with this book. We both really enjoyed it. And yeah, another chunky book, but holy moly, I really love this book. What to say about it? What to say? There's a couple things going on. There is Satanists, kind of that kind of stuff going on, involving a young girl. There's this guy that gets wrapped up in all of it at this like ski launch with his girlfriend. They're like having like relationship problems. He gets wrapped up in it all though, and yada yada yada. I guess when there's a big like courtroom scene, oh shit hits the fan. I don't know what else to say. You just gotta read it because it was excellent. And yeah, very first John Ferris book will not be my last, and I loved it. It took me by surprise for sure. Absolutely a top fave for the year. All right. Oh, The Seventh Day. Oh gosh, this was so good. The Seventh Day by Yuhua. This was so good. Let me remind you of the translated from the Chinese by Alan H. Barr. I read this for my Reading Like 1 from 17 reading vlog, and this was so good. We're following this man, Young Fei, who is, in the beginning of the book, he died, right? So he's dead, and we're following him. He has 7 days after his death, and he is in this sort of in-between afterlife kind of thing, and he meets some people other dead people, like his ex-wife is in there. I don't know. We kind of go back in time through his life. We see, he and his father and their relationship, and I don't know. It was just so good. I feel like it was a really interesting look into a possible afterlife. Also a really, I think, some kind of scathing critique on sort of consumerism how that presents itself in more modern day China, because there are definitely sort of haves and have-nots, and how that even presents itself in the afterlife. You know, if someone hasn't purchased you, or if you haven't purchased yourself a burial ground, then you don't get to be buried, and so you just like wander the afterlife forever. So there's a lot to explore here, I think, if you want to look deep into it. But then there's also, it's just kind of this life of this man. I thought it was wonderful, wonderfully written. I thought it was really beautiful. The ending made me cry. Yeah, this was absolutely gorgeous. I loved it. Obviously, because it's on my list. All right. A super fun book, but oh my god, did I love Cherry Magic. This is volume 1. I read volume 1 and 2, I think now. This is by Toyota. This is a little romance manga. I'm trying to find the translator for you. Translated by Taylor Engel. I love it so much. This is an office romance. So this guy here is a 30-year-old. He just turns 30 and he's still a virgin, because bless his heart. But when you hit 30 and you're a virgin, you get this magic power. And his sort of magic power is when he kind of touches someone, he kind of hears their inner thoughts. And one day he touches this fellow, and lo and behold, this guy has a crush on this guy. What's their name? I can't remember their names now, but I'm really terrible. Adachi. That's right, Adachi. And Kurosawa. Yeah. Adachi's this guy. And maybe there's a little romance. I don't know, it's really slow burn. We haven't really gotten to much yet, even in volume 2. But I love these characters. I love that it also is featuring a somewhat older, you know, person. Sometimes romance mangas are like high school kids or like young 20s, but I love, you know, I found a couple of books this year that have older, you know, people in them, which I don't know, I really love. And this was so cute and fun and sweet, and I loved it so much. Okay, I loved it so much. I finally read I binged the Ascender series. This is by Jeff Lemire, art by Dustin Nguyen, and this is the sort of sequel, I guess, to the Descender series. Whoa, I really loved this. I love Descender and Ascender so much, and the artwork in here to me is always just superior. It is some of the best. It's some of the best. It's this gorgeous kind of watercolor thing. So this picks up about 10 years after Descender, so after the robots have kind of come back, and there's this things are going on, yada yada yada, and we're following our main character is this young girl, Mia, who is the daughter of characters in the first book. So I won't say much more because, you know, it is, you know, you really want to read Descender first. But whoa, it was fantastic. Really good action. Lots of surprises in here, especially with one character in particular, which kind of, I don't know. I don't know. It was so good. It was just good. I just love this entire flippin' series. It's so good. It's just so good, you guys. Okay, Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zanner. Whoa, I love this. This is a memoir by Michelle, dealing with the death of her mother, and how Michelle has processed this grief, and how, you know, I think how grief can kind of pop up at sometimes, like when she's in H Mart shopping and she remembers, you know, either being in H Mart with her mom or her mom cooking something in particular, you know, that kind of thing. I just thought it was really lovely, and I think a really, you know, interesting insight into her family, and again, just grief in general. How, yeah, I don't know. I don't really have much else to say. I just thought it was really, really fantastic, and I really liked Michelle's writing. I thought, yeah, I don't know. It was good. I don't really know what to say because it's it's a memoir, right? But yeah, it was really good. Let's talk about another. This is the other book I was talking about that has older protagonists. Old Fashioned Cupcake, another by Sagan. This is another like romance manga. But it's such a delight. So this guy here is actually like in his 40s. I just turned 40. So, and it's another office romance too. I guess maybe I like office romances, but he's about 10 years younger than him, but just is absolutely just head over heels, head over heels, and with what's it, Nozue, yeah, and Togawa, yeah, and it's just so good. You see them, you know, starting to hang out outside of work and things like that, and it's just a delight. It was just a delight. I love seeing the older characters in a romance and seeing them get together. I don't know. It was so sweet. And there is a drama based on this, which was adorable. They cast it perfectly. It was so good. So I highly recommend the drama too. But it was so cute. It was so cute. I love it. Okay. Oh, Drawing Blood by Puppy Z Bright, aka Millie Martin. And I read two. I read Lost Souls also, but I think I liked Drawing Blood a little bit more, so I just put one on the list. But I do really like Lost Souls too. But I really love this one. It was kind of about this, you know, history of this house, how that plays into fact with their characters. It takes place in North Carolina, which to me, like all the North Carolina references were just like hit home for me because that's where I live. And yes, we have these two guys that sort of just stumble across each other and ended up, you know, kind of falling in love. But they have sort of dark pasts and secrets and hauntings and things like that. But in typical, you know, Bright fashion, it was beautifully written. I thought the characters were amazing. I loved this book. I loved it so much. And yeah, I loved it. I don't know what else you say other than I loved it. Yeah, it was great. Okay, up next. Hellhound by Ken Greenhall. Yeah, I love this book. I know some of y'all didn't like it when we read it. I think, what was it? I forget. A lot of us read it for something. I forget now. Anyway, I loved it. Here's the thing. I really like Ken Greenhall. Yeah, I have loved Elizabeth. I really enjoyed Childgrave. And I loved the hell out of Hellhound. Yeah, I really did. And I think just because, I don't know, Ken Greenhall, the way he writes characters in general, like, especially characters like you don't like his characters a lot of times. And same for here. In this one, we're following this dog and who's like a hellion, and like, he's totally like kills people. I don't know. But then he kind of meets his match when he is sent to live with this family that has like, I don't know, was it like 12 or 13 years old, this kid, who's also like totally evil, right? So I don't know. It was good. I loved it. I thought it was great. Anyway, whatever. Okay. Switching gears, how about True Grit by Charles Portis? Yeah, that one took me by surprise, but that was so good. Talk about some awesome characters. Oh my gosh. Maddie was amazing. She was, yeah. Whoa, she was so good. So Maddie has shown up to hire someone to, you know, avenge her, her father was murdered, right? And I think that was it. Anyway. And so she stumbles on Rooster Cogburn because he supposedly has a lot of grit and can help track down, you know, these people. And so they kind of set off, you know, into the wilds and sort of goes from there. But boy, let me this is about the characters and the setting too. I mean, I thought the setting of, you know, the West and the desert and all that was done really well. You know, riding on horses, all that good stuff. All of that was captured really well. But this character, Maddie, man, she was a spitfire, and I loved her so much. Maybe another favorite character of the year would be Maddie, behind Jeb from Fear. For sure, because she was just amazing. She was so good. And I highly recommend the audio for this because it is narrated by, of all people, Donna Tartt. But she did an excellent job. She needs to narrate more books, honestly. She has a great voice. It's got a slight southern clip to it. But yeah, she was fantastic narrating this book. And she talks, and there's a bit in what I listened to about how much True Grit means to her as a book. It was like her grandmother read it and her mother read it. Like, it was like, yeah, it's like one of those books for her family. Like, everyone loves True Grit, you know. Yeah, so if you haven't read it yet, I mean, I highly recommend it. Even though like it's a Western and maybe it doesn't appeal to you, for the characters alone, it is worth it. And it's wonderfully written. And yeah, it's excellent. So I highly recommend. Okay, Cruel Angels Past Sundown by Haley Piper. I love this. Another kind of horror Western with some really big religious undertones. So if you're into like religious horror, I think this would definitely should be on the top of your list. We're following, you know, at the very beginning, man, this like woman shows up, or she's not even a woman. I think she's like an older teenager. Anyway. But something's going on, and like this woman's like husband is like died, and it's a whole thing. There's this preacher involved, and like there's like the shootouts in this like tavern. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it because it would be spoilery, but it's so good. I think typical Haley Piper fashion. She never lets me down, okay? I love everything Haley writes. This was no exception. I loved it, and the cover, perfection. All right. Another strange entry, Hearts of Oak by Eddie Robson. I've read this for our second week of Weird that we hosted in September. I really liked this a lot. So we're open up. We're in this world, right? And it's run by this king. And then there's people that are constantly building things. And they're constantly being built, mostly out of wood, which is interesting. Like tall buildings and everything is all mostly going to be wood. We find a stone and like metal are very, 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 very rare. But like forests and things are always being sort of replenished. And to keep building, everything's just constantly changing because the whole town is full of like city planners and like architects and things. I don't know. Very strange. It's very strange because you're like, what in the world is going on here? And then you figure out what's going on here, and you're like, whoa! So it's a really great twist in here that I thoroughly enjoyed. It's just, I don't know if this would appeal to everyone, but it was just it was just very interesting and strange and kind of delightful. And there's a talking cat. There's a talking cat here too, just so you know. That might win you over. Okay, what's next? Devolution by Max Brooks. That was a hell of a lot of fun. Bigfoot book, yeah, so fun. So basically, we're following the folks of this community that is supposed to be this kind of like self-sufficient community that self-sustaining to a point. And not even that because I do rely on outside things a lot. But, you know, green living, you know, yada, 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 for rich people. And they live kind of a bit secluded up in the, you know, sort of Washington area, Washington state. And then so a catastrophe happens, this volcano explodes, and they're cut off. And they're just, you know, it's a survival story at that point. They're trying to, because they don't have a lot of food, all that kind of good stuff. There's, yeah, sides being picked, you know, that kind of thing. And then lo and behold, because of this big explosion, a sort of family of Bigfoots, whatever, Sasquatches have been kind of forced out of where they live, and they stumble upon this community, and whoa, shit is the fan. And, yeah, it gets a little brutal. People start dying, and I don't know. It was just kind of a fun time, and also I think of course a good look into, you know, so these types of communities, like how sufficient are you if you can't actually survive like a week later, you know what I mean? Anyway, it was good. It was really good. Okay, Edenville by Sam Revlin, another wonderfully weird book that got a little gross at times. Yeah, we're following a couple characters, like boyfriend girlfriend, as the boyfriend is an author, and he has been published. He had this like horror book that was, you know, a semi-hit, I think, and he's, you know, gotten some, you know, some writer's block trying to, you know, get the next book out. But he's invited to come to this small, like, upstate, you know, college, kind of liberal arts college, to be part of the writing program there. But maybe things are not what they seem at Edenville College. And it is not. It's absolutely not what they seem. There is, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to spoil it because I think you just need to go into this book. You need to just read the book. Expect some unlikable characters. The author guy, the total deal hole. But his girlfriend's pretty cool. There's this gaggle of like old ladies, which are like cool shit. There are twists and turns. Things are not what they seem. It goes wild, bonkers, crazy. I loved it. I really enjoyed this. And yeah, another book club pick actually for Amy's Dark Hearts book club. And we did chat about this book. I'll link that below if you read it and want to hear what we had to say about it. It was a fun discussion I had with Amy and Katrina Brown. So anyway, I love this book. I thought it was great. And it's a debut. I'm really looking forward to what the author has for us next, you know, because I thought this was a hell of a debut, honestly. Just, yeah, went to some very strange places. Really enjoyed it. Okay, I got one kind of fun, last minute entry to add to my list was Candy Cane Kills by Brian McCauley. I thought I had so much fun with this. I read this, started at Christmas Eve, I finished up Christmas Day. The absolute perfect Christmas read. It is a slasher book, absolute fantastic slasher. It was followed all the sort of slasher hits, but it was just a lot of fun. I just had a great time with the book, which to me, I mean, makes it a good book. Not necessarily anything new as far as like slasher, but sometimes you just find comfort in the things that are same. You know what I'm saying? But we're following this family as they've rented this little cabin for Christmas holidays. The husband and wife are teetering, things haven't been getting along. Are they going to get divorced? Things aren't happy, then they got two like teenage kids, and yes, and one of which is a disabled character, and I thought she was handled really well in here. She uses a cane at the beginning of the book, and kind of at one point it moves to like some crutches. I thought she was handled really well as far as a disabled character. Sometimes like you never know, right? But yeah, I thought she was really great in here. She was kind of a smart aleck, which I always find fun. Yeah, it just goes from there. We learn this history of this house, and perhaps something's lurking in the shadows, right? That's all I'll say. I thought it was just an absolute, just perfect thriller, or a perfect slasher. And if you like thematic slashers, if you read it at Christmas time, absolutely, it was perfect. It was perfect for what I was needing at the time. So yeah, absolutely. Okay, drum roll. My very favorite, very, very tippity top favorite book of this year was bar none, Kim Ji-young, born 1982. And this is by Shonen Jew. And I loved this book. I read it for K-Turpathon. Was that in July? I think it was. It'd been on my list it'd been on my radar for a little while now. And so I finally got to it, and I am so glad that I did. I did do a book chat about this book. I will leave that linked below if you're interested in kind of further thoughts about what I had about the book. I actually reread it really recently, a couple weeks ago. No, last week maybe. Anyway, I read it again just to make sure it was my tippy top, and yeah, it absolutely solidified as my favorite book of the year and catapulted to one of my all-time favorite books ever. I will absolutely reread this book again and again and again. I think it is a fantastic look into what it is like to be a woman in this world. Now, this, of course, really, specifically targets what it's like to be a woman in South Korea, as we're following, Kim Ji-young as she's dealing with, what her life was like, and how hard it can be at times, especially, when there are these sort of things that you have to do with, getting good grades in school, going to a good college, meeting a man, getting married, having children. But then you also, especially when she gets to the having her child part, which is where the story picks up, she has had a child, and, kids, I think maybe a couple years old now. And Kim Ji-young is struggling. Like, she's really struggling with life and dealing with the sacrifices that she had to make, and that are expected of women, even now, as we like to think that we are so progressive. I've never felt more seen in a book as a woman, as a mother, as a wife. I've never related to a character more, honestly. And I recommend everyone read this book, not just for women, because I think it's very eye-opening for men too. Even if you think you are a really progressive man, I think you would still get a lot from this book. It is not overly preachy. It is just presenting Kim Ji-young's life. And it even kind of goes back to the life of her mother at some point as well. And her sister is kind of wrapped in here too. I think it's very, very eye-opening, and but again, not overly preachy. It is just, here is the life of a typical woman. And it is not always flippin' amazing, and yeah, I can't gush about it anymore, because I will be here forever. But I loved this book, and I want everyone to read this book. Alrighty guys, this is a long video, so let me know if any of my top faves made your top faves. I'd love to know. Let me know, what your faves of the year were. I'd definitely like to know your favorites, so I can add to my list. You know, I never end the list. So that's going to do it for me, guys. 2023 was a great year for books for me, and I'm really looking forward to 2024. All right, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you in the next one, of course. All right, bye.